Oh, how do I use AI to find more leads? AI is a tool. You can do things using AI that can get you more leads, but it's
Yeah.
not a magic tool that you just flip on. When I saw AI coming into the scenes, Jasper was the first AI tool that I used. I was so excited about it. I couldn't sleep all night, and I was like calling my mother, and I was like, "Oh my god, I just saw this thing. It wrote like 10 blog posts, mom." I just knew I had another business in me.
Helena Liu is the founder of Product Camps and Exams PM. Her goal is to help businesses enhance their efficiency and effectiveness through AI, automations, and project management. She wants to help you turn AI from a novelty into a time-saving tool.
One of the first things that people were like, oh, I need help solving this.
The two main ones are leads. The second most popular one is social media. So we did create like a brand guide to tell GPT like how we wanted to write it. Once this content is created, you can have Make automatically post it for you. The downside of Make is that there's no humans in the loop. My strategy at the beginning was like, why don't I just make Kijiji ads, which is free, and I'll get myself on the first page of Google for.
That's so clever.
Smart.
That's so clever.
Yeah, GHL does some things really well. You just want one tool, it's kind of got everything in there. There's such a need, for AI right now.
You have an interesting background, it appears, as a founder. And I'm curious, have you come from a technical background?
I actually went to business school, but I've always had a very intense interest in tech. Like I was like the only girl in my high school class a long time ago who took computer science and learned to code when I was like a teenager. But actually, I didn't have a formal technical background, but a lot of it's self-taught, and I did take like Comp Sci 101, 102 in college. But
Yeah.
that's the extent of it.
And when you say self-taught, like what approach do you take?
So for example, like on my first job, which was at Minto, which is a real estate company, there was like a lot of spreadsheets that they were using, and I was like in an analyst role. So then I learned VBA to try to sort that data faster. So it's kind of like whatever use case that was coming up in my life, and I was like, oh, can I do it faster? Can I do it? Can I do it a different way that's better? And then I just learned the technical skills that I needed to get those tasks done. That's, I guess, how I
like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Because based on what you're helping people learn today, and based on what you've created for yourself, people might assume that you had this really strong technical background, but it sounds like you had the I'm going to figure it out background. And
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself pretty technical now, or would you still say it's not your strong suit?
I wouldn't consider myself a developer, but I would say I can generally figure things out. But if you told me to code a completely new program from scratch, I probably would not be able to do that.
You can talk the talk, basically.
For like using no code tools, like I can figure out all my stuff around that. But like if I had to code something from scratch beyond like a while loop, for loop on Python or something like that, I probably won't be able to do that. But I can generally figure my way out through it, and I can generally read the code if I had it in front of me.
Well, that's a lot more than I can, so that's good.
How did that evolution look for you then, going from what you mentioned back in the day when looking at as an analyst work to where you are today? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was an analyst first at Minto, then I actually worked at IBM after I graduated from university. And I was there, I want to say like 2.5 years actually. And it was there actually that I got the idea for my first business, which is Exams PM, because they were saying that in order to ascend in your role, you had to have your PMP certification in order to get to the next step. So that's exactly what I did. I studied for my PMP, and I got my certification. And then this was, I think, back in 2012, 2013-ish. And at that time, online learning was just at the cusp, but it wasn't huge. And I just kind of saw an opportunity because to get that education was quite expensive. It was like $1,000 to $2,000 to get it. And then I thought, well, there must be a way to lower the cost to do it online. And I spent a whole year trying. So like, and so all the money I was making on IBM, I was actually investing it into my business instead of going out to bars and clubs, which
Yeah.
typically people do in their 20s. I was like writing blog posts. I was like trying to figure out like how to like set up a website, etc. And I spent a whole year, and it got absolutely nowhere. And then I think it was the book E Myth, when I realized I was playing business, but I wasn't actually running a business. Because if I actually launched my offer, then I could actually get rejected. But if I kept on saying like, oh, I'm just going to make a website, I'm going to make a blog post, I'm going to make a video, I'm going to make a graphic, it's harder to fail that way. And
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
And like the big realization for me was I realized I was playing business instead of actually running a business. So I focused on nothing else but making sales when I realized that. And the big aha moment for me was like I was getting quotes at the time for like $1,000 to $2,000 a month to do SEO, which at that time was an astronomical amount for me. Because as someone who was, a year or two out of university, like I was making 65,000 a year. So,
Nice.
so that was like more than what I was paying for rent at the time.
Yeah.
And so I knew I couldn't afford SEO, and I didn't know how to do it because it just seemed like this black box. But what I noticed was that Kijiji, which is the Canadian version of Craigslist, was like the fourth or fifth or sixth, depending on the day, ranked on Google naturally for project management training, PMP training in Toronto. And so my strategy at the beginning was like, why don't I just make Kijiji ads, which is free, and I'll get myself on the first page of Google for
That's so
free.
clever.
Smart.
That's so clever.
And that's what I did. And I was just, so I already spent a year, like, and probably over $5,000, just like trying things, and I was getting nowhere. I was just so hungry at that time. Just I didn't even care about making money. I was just like, I just want a foot in the door. And so my whole strategy when I was getting started was like, I was going to undercut on my competitors, charge like 10-20% of what they're charging, just because I just wanted that foot in the door. And that's how I got started. So
That's awesome. So then when did you decide it was time for, I say a pivot. I know you still have ultimately that business that's helping around the PMP certification. Is that right? Is it help prepare people? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, but you started to pivot. What's led to that?
A couple of things. The main thing was, I ran exams for him for 10 years, and then there wasn't much more that I could grow with that, like from a personal standpoint. It got to a point where, project management was just project management. Like there wasn't like another tier of project management that you could do.
Yeah.
So after you learn the Scrum framework and you learn, the 5 Ps from Porter and the RACI chart, etc. There wasn't much else. And when I saw AI coming into the scenes, was Jasper was the first AI tool that I used. So that was even before ChatGPT was a thing. I just had this like I remember like I learned about it from a conference in Vegas. I was so excited about it. I couldn't sleep all night, and I was like calling my mother, and I was like, "Oh my God, I just saw this thing, and it could like write, and it could like generate images, and like it wrote like 10 blog posts, mom." And I was like just this kid in this candy shop.
That's
And
awesome.
then I kind of just like innately felt like I just had that feeling, and
Yeah.
I just knew I had another business in me, you know.
And,
Yeah.
and at that point, you already had as you said, the blogging you were doing, you had YouTube channel that was in existence at that point. Did you then decide I'm going to start going all in on creating content on this as a way to learn it, or did you start learning it and then create content? Like, what did that look like, and how did that impact your growth?
Yeah, I was very lucky, first of all, with my project management business to actually build up enough savings that I could
Yeah.
take some risk. Um, and at that point, when I wanted to, so for me, I just wanted to, as an entrepreneur and as a creative person, also explore like what else
Hmm.
is out there. And so I was like consuming YouTube content like a maniac. Like like it was my full-time job for like 2 weeks. I just wanted to learn everything there was out there. I spent hundreds of dollars of my own money, like just getting the premium access to a lot of different tools just to play around with it and to see what it
Yeah.
was. So I studied it quite intensely before I made programs where got pivoted my own YouTube channel towards that.
Nice. And then was your growth already pretty significant, or did the switch to AI actually help you grow even faster on YouTube?
Yeah, so I didn't really focus on YouTube too much.
Okay.
I focused more on Facebook, and
Mhm.
Facebook and the Instagram ads did really well for my project management business. So I had about 32,000 subscribers on YouTube. And
Mhm.
I actually haven't posted for like 2 years. Um,
Oh, wow.
so I was definitely not consistent with YouTube
Yeah.
until I pivoted over to AI, and now I have consistently been posting like one a week. If I could manage it, sometimes two a week. So
Nice.
it did grow a lot after I did pivot to AI.
Yeah, that's
Is
great.
YouTube kind of a strategic approach, or was that just
Yeah.
something that you did and you're like, oh, it's working? Or was that very thought out and strategic?
Um, it was more on a strategic move. So when I first got into AI, I took the agency route where I was just like implementing these things for people and trying to get them results.
Yeah.
And you need an inbound strategy and you need an outbound strategy. So that was a great inbound strategy to show people like what it is, and then if a lot of times business owners don't want to do it for themselves, so they're like, I want you to do it. So it was a
Yeah.
great, so that was why I started doing YouTube to begin with, just to get more of that inbound lead coming
That makes sense. And then from there, so you began in more of an agency model, but you've evolved to now be able to both the education, and then it also sounds like you have some tools also
in.
that are out there. Yeah. So what does that look
Yeah.
like today for you?
Yeah, great question. So the main program that we have is the AI Tech Accelerator program, which
Mhm.
teaches business owners how to implement AI and automations, agents into their own business if they want to. The same skill set can be applied to anybody who also want to get into AI as a freelancer or want to start agencies of their own. And then we have the AI automation templates, which all the templates are made, and you just plug it in and you're good to go. And we have AI content creation program, which is all about how do you create like 30 to 90 days of social media content using AI in an hour. That's the promise of the
Yeah.
program. And I use it, I practice what I preach there. So stuff that you see on my LinkedIn, on my Facebook and Instagram, that's the result of the stuff that I teach in that program. And we're
Nice.
coming out with an AI SaaS bootcamp, which is, how to use AI to code and create your own SaaS. So
That's amazing. So how big is your company at this point then?
In terms of headcount, or in
Yeah.
terms of what? In terms of
Head-
headcount, yeah, I would say like between 2 to 5, depending on the time of the day and when
Yeah.
you're talking to me, but around that size at the moment.
Okay. I mean, and then I guess with that too, because you've leaned so much into the automation side of it, that theoretically, I guess that helps you to keep your headcount, whatever you want to say, down. Is that also more contractors that you leverage, or do you have full-time team members?
No, everyone's a contractor.
Yep. Got it.
Everyone's,
And you mentioned a couple other things there. I'm curious. For the ones where you say there's templates, are those templates built on a specific no code tool, or what are they built in?
all the templates right now are built in make.com, and I'm creating more as time goes on in N8 and as well as
Yep.
N8 and has really been taking off this year with agents. And I think it's just a much more effective and efficient way to build a lot of things,
Right.
because using like if you're just using something with logic, for example, you have like a lot of if else statements, whereas if you can just tell that agent in natural language what it needs to do, and it has all of these tools, it can just pick out the right one to use. So it's definitely a much more effective and efficient way to build a lot of these automations.
That makes sense. I'm curious here if we take it back, because as you said, you evolved from, in essence, being able to do this for others to now teaching others. I have to assume a big piece of that is it's probably more scalable and to a degree more profitable because of the scalability to it. Obviously, you could probably get more on a per customer basis and implementation for them. But did you find that there's a certain type of customer that you were initially having an easier time to do the agency work for?
It was all over the place. So we've had everything from gyms to e-commerce stores to a tax lien company to an OSHA company. So it was definitely all over the place. But the thing is, my leads were inbound. So what I tell people is like, don't just say no to a client because you quote unquote chose a niche. When you're doing your outbound, it makes sense to have a clear value proposition and a niche picked out. But inbound, just take everybody. Yeah.
Makes sense. And then you figure out that through that process, especially building for some of these individuals, I'm sure that's how you really refined the automations that you have now, that ultimately now you're able to sell to others or teach others how to do. Because you've had enough sampling of all these different approaches to it.
Yeah.
I have a more of a, maybe call it a philosophical question for you. Sure. You definitely have gone from what you did early on and just diving headfirst into learning the next thing and then the next thing. What would you say drives you to actually so passionately do some of the things you're doing? Because I feel like a lot of people talk about it, but then as soon as they hit roadblocks, they stop because they're not really into it, or the motivation and drive isn't there. So what drives you that has allowed you to stay in what you're doing for such a long time? Because it's over 10 years, and that's a long time.
That is a very long time. That's a great question. First of all, I can tell you that what drives me in the beginning is definitely what is different from today. So, what drove me in the beginning was I didn't want to grow I grew up poor. My family immigrated to Canada when I was 8 years old, with nothing. I think at the lowest point, my parents had just $1,000 in their bank account. So it wasn't a lot. And the three of us, we rented a 2-bedroom. So I'm the only child. We rented like a 2-bedroom apartment in Jen and Finch, which is it's a ghetto, very, very ghetto area in Toronto. And even then, my parents couldn't afford their rent. So they rented out the other bedroom. So the three of us were actually in one of the bedrooms. So at the beginning, it was like years and years of that, and for me, it was saying that I just don't want to, like, I just don't want to be that person, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like I had a trust fund lying around or anything like that.
Right.
So it was like if I didn't make it for myself, it was just never going to happen. So in the beginning, what drove me very intensely was just not wanting that lifestyle anymore. Uh, and after my business started to take off, I think it became harder and harder to justify as the bank account got bigger and bigger in a way. And it did take some soul searching after that point. I took off and I went to California and I just stayed on the beach for a good almost a year, like half a
Wow.
definitely over half a year, and it got really boring. And one thing I realized from that was that, like, it kind of went back to the story that I heard, and it was like this person walks into this palace and they got lobsters and they got steak and they got cakes uh, and like every day, and then they go to the slot machine, they win every time, and it's like good things happen over and over, and then they ask God, like, is this heaven? And then God says, how do you know it's heaven? Uh, maybe it's hell, something like that. So the story went something like that, and that kind of resonated with me, because it's
Yeah.
like it's not having all those stuff that gives you like meaning and purpose, because you kept on getting that. It gets old, it gets boring, and it's not really a problem that I know is talked about a lot. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and then I just realized, like, there was more I wanted to do in life. Um, and when your brain goes idle, like, you will always have problems. So you get to choose the problems that you have in life, though. So you either
Right.
choose good problems or bad problems. So in my personal life, I just started to realize, like, when I wasn't focused on work, I was attracting, like, just a lot of bad stuff happening. Um, and so it now I do it for the love of the game. Um, and because I feel like it is making an impact, and it's just like, yes, that funnel
Yeah.
worked, or something like that. Um, and so it did take a very, very big mindset shift, and this is a simplified version, but it did take me about 2 years to actually, you know find that purpose again.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked the question, because that definitely was insightful. I love the story. I'm gonna steal it, 'cause that's a fantastic story.
And pretty incredible too is as you shared that, even about growing up with parents, because like me having 3 kids now, and I think about that, it's like um while house hacking can be a way to make things work, it's always hard when you consider it in the situation you're at. I'm sure your parents didn't want to have to share the home with somebody else at those times, but it's those things that then ended up obviously instilling in you this idea that you're gonna, I don't want to say make it, but you're gonna figure out a pathway so that that's not what it looks like. And I think immigrants in general, Art was an immigrant too. Like the stories often when you hear like about that and what has to be sacrificed
Yeah.
for, yeah, it's just incredible. But then for you to say now the love of the game, like I do think that is this piece. And I think there's that transition that eventually does hit for some people. And I could see it earlier when you were talking about, going from the project management side of it to then when you switch it was like, because the game wasn't there as much anymore. You're like, all right, we figured this out. Now it's like, how do you keep taking that to that next level? And yeah, it's pretty interesting to hear it now, because even as you say, oh, this product, you could tell you keep finding ways to solve the problem. And then once you solve the problem, you offer that solution to other people, and then you're on to solving the next problem in many ways. So I'm actually curious, because what it does sound like you have in there is you definitely have a mind that looks to process and systems and is thinking about how you can make things basically easier and better, which I think is an important way for entrepreneurs to look at things anyways.
Mhm.
And if, for others right now, as they lean into and look at uh, AI, automation, the combination of the two things, did you find that there was a specific type of product or offer within the automations that were like one of the first things that people were like, oh, I need help solving this?
The two main ones are leads.
Okay.
Like my LinkedIn probably gets blown up all the time. Like, oh, how do I use AI to find more leads? It's
Yeah.
like AI is a tool. You can do things using AI that can get you more leads, but it's
Yeah.
not a magic tool that you just flip on and you
Totally.
suddenly got 100 more
Yeah.
leads. I wish it was like that, but it's not.
Yeah.
So the number one thing that I get asked, I think, would be the leads. The second most popular one is social media, is content
Okay.
creation with AI.
So for you now then, and I know you've created great video around this too that we could also point people towards, but I'm very curious if like, is the route for you for a lot of that automation you do, does it start with your YouTube, or do you actually start it a completely different way? Like what does that process look like, if you could walk us through it?
Sorry, what process?
Oh, the process of, taking, are you taking one thing and creating multiple pieces of content from it? Or are you like, do you leverage your existing stuff like YouTube, or do you just create it from scratch? Like, what is that process for you of, in essence, batching out loads of content, at one point that's still a high quality?
Yeah, so for me, I think of content as a mixture of human plus AI content.
Mm-hmm.
I think, doing one or the other in this day and age just wouldn't be sufficient. AI is really good at quantity, but I think
Yeah.
having that human touch would also add a layer of quality to it. So all the long form content on my YouTube channel are made by me. I actually saw a
Mm-hmm.
comment earlier on my video today that was like, is this AI? I was like, no, it was actually me. That
Yeah.
was actually me. So I think a problem we're
That's
going to
funny.
run more and more into in the future is how do you prove it was you? But anyway, that's
Yeah.
a discussion for another day. So
Yeah.
the long form content, back to your question, is made by me. And
Mm-hmm.
then we come up with like a table of content that we want to post across different channels.
Okay.
So like, do we do a carousel post? And then
Mm-hmm.
which channel is this going to? So imagine rows as to
Yep.
the content type that we want to do and the channels.
Is that still coming from your actual YouTube long form content, or are they separate? Like, do you use that YouTube to inform the rest? Okay.
No, we actually don't, because this is all batch created months in advance. So it looks something
Okay.
like
Got
that.
it.
Like we plan out what kind of content we want to do each day of the week, and then the which channels they're going on, and then the
That's
X
great.
across from it. So it starts with the planning, and then each of these. So like a one liner, for example, we or like a carousel. So we will have custom GPTs and a SOP for creating each of them. Um,
Uh-huh.
and and then after that, I actually have my lovely assistant doing all of that work for me. So I come in, I do the
Amazing.
video. I do have a human editor, but we sometimes do use a little bit of AI to edit our videos too. Descript
Okay.
is the main tool that we use,
Yep.
but with the rest of the channels besides YouTube, um, we just we figure out like what are we gonna post, and then like on and how often we're gonna post and what kind of content, and then each of that type of content is its own has its own like SOP. Like for example, like let's say it was a gym.
Mm-hmm.
What's a question that you can ask your users for engagement? Maybe it's like, what's your weight loss goal or whatever, right? So you batch create like a number of these questions, and then you
Yeah.
can like put it on all of your channel. If like asking your user a question, it's like one type of content that
Okay.
uh, you want to create, like that. We call that like a bucket of content that you want to create. So
Yeah.
you kind of figure out, or like a meme. and then where is that going to go? Because like different platforms have different rules for image sizes, text amount, like
Yeah.
you can't add an image. So that's why we plan out like what kind of content, what format is it going to be, and which platform is it going to be, and when all of that is documented and communicated with the team, then that is completely off my plate because I always like
Wow.
to systemize and get other
Yeah.
people to do as much as possible. So it's not
No,
all
that's good. And
kind of.
how often do you do that planning?
So we do that once a month.
Okay.
We do the planning
Incredible.
once a month, but I even the planning part we have a custom GPT for
Mhm.
now. So I just tell my lovely assistant that and she's amazing and she's listening to this and so the planning is she just talks to the custom GPT to
Yeah.
do that part. So I'm not even in the planning process anymore for that.
Amazing. And what about in
That's
the
great.
custom GPT though? Does the custom GPT include content or styles or anything from you that helps to generate that? Or is it actually just more around style? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, so depends. Like you can train a custom GPT to have your specific writing styles and more of the branding. We so we did create like a brand guide to tell GPT like how we wanted to write it, and then
Yeah.
then all of the other GPTs are trained with the main brand guide that the first
Nice.
GPT created. So I can actually show you
Oh yeah,
what
please. I love it.
what that looks like.
Great.
So we can use like, for example, your website as an example. Like what's your, Michael, what's your website?
The velocitylabs.com.
So this is the brand guide GPT.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create a brand guide. And now we can put in your website. And what it does is it's gonna scan your website, goes
It's going to
through
say
it.
this guy should build a better website. Go ahead. Okay. Sorry. Interesting. Wow.
And it gives you your, and I can share this with you so you guys can
Yeah.
include in show notes if you want to.
That's awesome.
So you got your value statement. I help ambitious professionals bridge the gap between the life that they're living and the life that they want to live so that they can accelerate their careers without unnecessary pitfalls. What makes us different, your bio, the products that you have, your ideal
That's crazy.
avatars. Yeah, it gives you three,
That's amazing.
and it
That's
analyzes
awesome.
the brand voice of your website. So you can just copy and paste this,
Yeah.
and then so that the future GPTs that you make know what products you are offering, who's your ideal client, as well as like what your brand voice is, so that it can tailor it to that.
That's
So,
great. It now knows more than I do. Yeah. I mean, as you said it, and I do love that. And that's what's amazing sometimes, like when I've played with some of the ICP ones and things like that, I'm like, wow, but that's great. So is this one that you leveraged that was existent out there, one that you built out? Like what's this particular
I
GPT?
built this one.
You built this one. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
have
love
mine.
it. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Very cool. I love it. So then, okay. So seeing how you leverage that now, then at what point then for you in your content creation, are you then leaning into the make or the innate ends?
So you could depends. So right now, I have my social media manager do that part where
Yep.
NAN can. So okay, so you can have once this content is created, you can have make automatically post it for you,
Mhm.
but the downside of make is that there's no humans in the loop, so you can't even look it over. That's like the biggest complaint that I
Yeah.
found with social media automations with make. You could add in humans in the loop in N8N so it can create this content, but before it goes out it's approved by you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the difference between the two. And but we just found that like the amount of time that it saves right now with N8N is not that significant. Like if we were doing this for 10 different brands, I can see how it could make a difference to have it post. But right now we
Yeah.
just use the GHL uh, um, social planning tool, and then we just
Okay.
it's just a batch upload all of that,
Yeah.
in there. So the amount of time it'll save versus the amount of time it would take to create an agent for this specific use case,
Yeah.
in our situation, it just doesn't really add up. And that actually
Interesting.
brings up a great point, Michael. When it comes to automations, you kind of have to see like how long is it going to cost you to build that automation? How
Yeah.
long does it take, your human to do it, and what's the cost difference between the two, and does it make sense to automate? Because there could be cases that it doesn't make that much sense to
Yeah.
automate, because even if we automate this, it might save half an hour. So it just didn't really seem worth it for us at the
It,
moment.
no,
We've
that's
experienced that a lot. I would say Michael and I in our corporate lives where everybody's pushing for automation, but then not everything made sense because actually it was more expensive with the ROI being so little.
Yeah, and especially back to what you said, but the human being involved and how that works. And I've seen some really interesting one that people have built out where they've integrated it with like a Google sheet so that it will actually, once you select something on there, it will re-trigger back again to the automation, so it can continue to go to that next level, which is, I thought a pretty interesting way to build it out. But do you have things then right now within your business that you would say that you are regularly leaning into any automations around?
A lot of like personalization
Yeah.
is what we mostly do. So when someone comes in, we have automations firing to engage them, nurture them, send them the materials that they want, depending on, because
Okay.
we do have several different programs, and it's giving them the tailored information that they're
Yeah.
really looking for.
And is some of that through GHL?
Not as much, no, no.
Okay.
We
Okay.
don't do as much of our emailing stuff from GHL.
I got it. Okay. Yeah. That might be something I'll learn myself. I use it, and that is one of the ones there where I sometimes miss some of the other tools when it goes to some of those things, but it has its perks too. So
Yeah, yeah. GHL does some things really well, and
yeah.
then there's other features it doesn't do as well on. But what it's great for is like if you just want one tool, it's kind of got everything in there.
Yeah. That makes sense. So then for you, or rather, let's say for any of our listeners who might be thinking, oh, okay, well, interesting. They want to, follow in your footsteps in some sort of way and be like, and start building out some of these own solutions. Does the way that you started in the story that you shared, kind of as you started building some of these, and you already did have an existing, channel, but you did pivot the channel heavily towards this, at least, sorry, when I say channel, I should clarify the YouTube channel. There's obviously all the other ones that you have leverage. Do you think today for somebody trying to start out, that would look any different than when you started, whichever past couple of years as you've built this out?
The YouTube channel, or
The specific to the AI automations, the between both the agencies and the businesses that you built. I understand you're not as the agency itself, today you still ultimately started off as an agency and then moved into these other things. So for anybody starting today, like how would you recommend that they dip their toes in if this is an area that they want to be, so that they're not and I love how you said this at the beginning, what was it? Pretending to be an entrepreneur. How did you say that in the beginning? I loved how you
entrepreneur. Yeah,
an entrepreneur. Yeah, but I think you said it like playing on, which
playing business. Yeah.
playing business. So how can somebody ensure they're not just playing business if they want to do something
Run a
similar to
business.
yeah, exactly.
Actually run a business. Well, a business, the most important thing to keep in mind is like a business doesn't live without sales. So
Mhm.
doesn't matter how much time you spend learning how to build a website and making videos and graphics and text, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have customers, you're not solving a problem and you don't have a business. So that
Yeah.
it sounds simple, but what I told you right there took me over a year to learn.
Fair.
And where I would get started is one, go down to like your local whatever shop and just work for free, like hairdresser, mortgage broker, like realtor, whatever. Like find a established small business and work them for free. And the reason I say small is because when you start getting into the bigger companies, there's more red tape, and they don't
Yeah.
accept volunteers. They don't accept free work anymore. They need you to sign all the confidentiality agreements and blah, blah, blah before they even take you on board. So small businesses, much easier to get your foot in the door. And the reason I say work for free is because it gets you that real experience, because you can watch 100 different YouTube videos on AI. It's so different once you actually do it, for someone, for something. So
Yeah.
that's why like getting that real experience is so crucial. And there's such a need, for AI right now. Like I was getting my haircut a couple months ago, and my hairdresser, so she just kind of worked out of her the first floor of her home. But so she's a receptionist, and she's a
Yeah.
hairdresser, she's the cleaner, she's like the everything, which you don't want to be when you're a business. But anyway, so I was thinking when I was getting my haircut, like if she just had like an AI, receptionist, how great that would be. So even when she's with a client, she can't afford, like for those small businesses, they can't afford a human receptionist for
Yeah.
10, 15, whatever minimum wage is, an hour. So
Mhm.
she had an AI working for 20 cents for every minute that it's answering the phone. That's still a
Amazing.
huge difference to them, because
Sure.
even having AI is better than missing that call, because that could have
Yeah.
been potential client for that person, right? So I give that example just to show like there is so much opportunity, so much need for this solution. And if there's just that drive from someone to just get their foot in the door and not worry about maximizing how much they're going to make up front, knowing that that's going to come later, then that's what will make them succeed. I think
Yeah.
it's like 90% attitude towards something.
No, I like how you put that, and
And that's true wisdom from experience.
right. And I think what you said there too, and I think there's this interesting balance, and this is where I think it does come in handy for people such as yourself or others who are, for lack of a better way to put it, offering these solutions to people, because the person you just described, sometimes those are the individuals who are so buried in their work
Yeah.
that they don't actually take pause to actually figure out, oh, there's this thing that I can do. And I'm sure in the future, more and more, just like there's the service titans today for home services who like put everything together for them. And now they'll start adding agents and AI within there. But there's still that last mile, for lack of a better way to put it, using that term loosely here, but between the person and their approach versus what the software it does, and how you ultimately connect that. Or like if
Yeah.
people want to take it to that next level and be like, I want it to be my voice, or I want it to, here are all the things I would say. Like that's
Yeah.
the piece that requires the implementation to customize it.
Exactly. That's right. You nailed it. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm curious too, just because you had mentioned N8N, obviously, as we talk about ChatGPT and that, are there any other tools that you lean into heavily for your own business when it comes to the AI and the automation?
So we use Flux a lot for images. N8N. We use Descript quite a bit for video editing. I'm sure there's more. We use SERP, but that's more of an API to just look over blog posts to see that if they're SEO optimized for search engines.
Nice.
And we would also cross use LLM. So sometimes like for research, we use like Perplexity and then jump back to Claude and then go to ChatGPT.
Okay.
So because each of these LLMs are trained a little differently, and there's things that each of them do better than others. So it depends on the use case. We might switch in between them.
Okay. Have you tried
At like a high level, I know it varies, but at a high level, are you able to say like what is ChatGPT best for? What is Perplexity best for? Claude? Like, have you bucketized them and say this is what I'll do?
Yeah, so Claude is better at like fictional writing. That's what's good for. Like ChatGPT tend to like give me list. So I think it's better for like corporate speech, sort of say.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, across all the benchmarks, like ChatGPT o1 as of today, it ranks the highest overall. And then Perplexity does a great job at research. So it's the least likely to hallucinate.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah. So if I was like writing something about legal, for example, like I might have ChatGPT write it, but then it'll be like article blah 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 in the blah 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 act, and I'm like, I'm gonna copy and paste that into Perplexity just to make sure that's like a real act, and not like, just hallucinate and make that up. So the Perplexity is great to just double check if it's like hallucination or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm curious here, have you tried ChatGPT's new deep, is it deep research, whatever they're calling their new one, deep search?
I tried it yesterday.
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so DeepSeek is actually not made by OpenAI. It's made by a Chinese company, and
There's a new one though. No, I'm sorry, not DeepSeek. There's a new one that ChatGPT just released. Is that the one you were saying, or you tried DeepSeek?
No, I tried deep research.
That's the new ChatGPT one. Yeah.
ChatGPT's new research option.
Yeah. Yep.
It was interesting. I woke up and for some, I have two small kids, 6 and 4. So waking up as early as usual.
Yeah.
So I woke up and my mind was, I was at the golf range a few days before. I'm obsessed with golf. Not to say I'm good at it, but there was this 13-year-old kid that was skinny, but that was hitting the ball like 40 yards more than me. So it was in my head. So I woke up and I'm like, how is this 13-year-old kid hitting the ball longer than me? For sure, I'm stronger. So then when I saw this deep research function, I'm like, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So I asked it, can you break down the biomechanics of a golf swing for a pro versus an amateur, and which part of it causes to give the club head the most speed? And it wasn't instant. It took like 5 to 7 minutes for it to come back.
It takes a while. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my God, it wrote an entire essay for me. I had an aha moment. And right now I'm so excited to go back to the range because I know exactly what I need to try. So my first try with deep research ChatGPT was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'll have to try it. So it sounds like, Helen, you haven't tried that one just yet, right?
There's new AI tools popping up every single day.
I know. It's hard to keep up.
I know. Yeah. It is so true. Just a question here for you, obviously, for anybody who's listening and thinking, oh my gosh, I want to, connect with her. I want to learn more from her. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you or to find you?
Yeah, my YouTube channel. I'm active in my Facebook group, which is free to join, and LinkedIn. Yeah, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you message me on LinkedIn, it is actually me. It's not a bot.
Nice. Yet, or is that pretty safe? That's what people can expect.
What's that? I
said yet, or is that pretty safe? That's where they could find the real you.
I think I want to leave like one channel to be at least feel me. So
yeah, that's good. I know, right? Exactly it. Pretty soon you won't know, or you'll go talk to yourself. Yeah. That's great. Love it. And really appreciate, you coming on with us today. And I think for anybody out there who hasn't had the chance to check out, your YouTube channel, highly recommend that. Really some great content on there where he walks you through the process. And I think whether or not it's somebody who's learning AI automation, you have lots of resources for that. Whether it's anybody who is looking to actually leverage those skills to build out their own agency, again, can't recommend highly enough with what you've put out there. I know it's helped me to learn, and I can only imagine it'll help others as they wrap their arms more around this crazy future we're all going to live in.
Yeah, thanks so much. And we do have a free AI automations course that people can sign up as well. It's productcamps.com/free.
Sweet. We will link it below here.
Make sure everybody's aware of that too.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Helena. You heard Helena say it, the importance of sales. Well, if this is an area that you want to learn more about, we recommend you check out this video from Matt, where he goes into a masterclass on sales.